Dennis TT guy here. Hey, it's been a long time since we had the camera. In fact, I've been riding with the other helmet, so I don't even know if you guys are looking at the sky, the ground, or what the hell you guys are seeing. Hopefully it works. About main mission to get the bike warm. I'm gonna set the I can talk. Oh, really? Anyway, main mission is to get the bike good and warm. I'm gonna set the cam chain. There was some movement I felt there, and on a mission to find where my noise is coming from. Initially, I thought I had the typical 500 problem with the rocker shafts inside the rocker box wearing out, basically the pocket that it sits in going egg-shaped, and therefore you get the starts as ticking, later winds up as clacking and knocking in the rocker box top end of the bike. I'm still not convinced that that's not the case. And I can hear them. But I did discover I had a few other problems, such as, here comes the noise now, such as a real loose timing chain. So I'm a little concerned there because I don't know how that backed off so badly. And I also had my exhaust valve tightened way up. So one of two things happened there, because the bike was running rich for so long. Now that I finally got it tuned in proper, it burnt off all the carbon, and it's now seating a little bit better and took up my slack in my valves. Or I've hammered out the seat on the exhaust valve, and in about a month or two I'll have burnt it and have to pull the head off anyway. So that aside, while we're trying to get the bike good and hot and warmed up, talk about something, I don't know what. Maybe I'll give you guys the history. Sure, why don't we do that? Why don't we talk about the fourth 500? Give you guys a quick little brief thing here. There's three 500s that everybody knows of. There's the SR, which is the full street version. There's the TT that I'm on, which is the full dirt version. And then there's the in-between, which is the XT. It's the Enduro. It is a registered dirt bike. All intents and purposes, it's the same as the TT, just as registered. A little bit different jetting, yes. Different electronics. Of course, you've got a lighting coil. A little bit different on the final drive, like the rear sprocket. But all intents and purposes, the same thing. Well, there was a fourth, and those of you that are diehard 500 fans, you already know where I'm going. Those of you who aren't, well, you're in for a treat. The fourth bike was the HL500. It was not factory born. It was race bred from the start. Two Swedish riders who rode for Yamaha. I'm terrible with names, so if you're a historian on this and I've got them wrong, feel free to correct me for sure, but forgive me above all. The one rider, Hallman, Hallman, was the one of them, hence the H. The other one was Lundin, or maybe even London, Lundin, hence the L. The two guys got together, HL500. When these bikes first came out, it was the TT that came out late 75, and it was only supposed to be for the North American market, which is ironic because it did better in the Pan-Asian markets than anywhere else in the world. Nonetheless, these two guys who were motocross racers in the 70s, very, very good riders, realized the potential of a large displacement four-stroke motorcycle, especially being from the factory that they were backed by. They approached Yamaha and said, hey, can we have one? Can we modify it? race this thing in the European European motocross circuit. Yamaha said, nope, carry on with what you're doing. 4-stroke for racing's dead. It's only 2-stroke, and that big old 4-stroke 500 is for the North American market only. We're not even going to bring it over here. Disappointed, they wandered off and basically carried on for the remainder of that year with what they were doing. Later on, I believe it was London, however you pronounce it, got a hold of an XT500 from an English rider who had just finished competing in the 6-day trials, was done with the bike, didn't want it anymore, and these guys bought it. They took it to their shop. Now this is with their own money. They had no factory backing at this point. They took it to their shop, they ripped it apart, keeping only the things that were usable, which turned out to be just the motor. They even threw away the frame. They took a Husqvarna, I think it was like a CR390 or something like that, or maybe a 3R60. I don't know my Husky sizes that well, but close ratio frame. They stuffed the 500 motor in there, mounted it up. The front forks were off of like an IT or a YZ. The tank was off of an MX. Just a mismatch of parts and fenders, the rims and things. There was Yamaha in there was Husky in there was some other oddball brands and whatever was left. Put this thing all together, realized that they kind of had the potential of what they were after, tore it all apart, sent the frame off to Profab, welded everything up, built it, made their first prototype. The two riders said, yeah, that's a go ahead, build us 5 more frames. The guys did. They, in the meantime, put the original one together, put the motor in it, practiced with it, realized they had one hell of a bike. Did a bunch more motor work to it, and this is where things get a little bit crazy. What I'm on now, which is the same as the XT, they make about 30 horsepower. These guys got 49.5 horsepower out of the same motor. Open pipe, no muffler, larger carbs with some work and stuff done to it. They did a cam on them, multi-angle cut valves, the whole deal. Like, these boys went all out. High compression. The motors didn't last long, but they made gobs of power. And of course, with horsepower on 4 strokes comes your torque. So they realized that this thing now was just out of this world. It was just an angry racing machine. So they brought in a third guy, and I'm not sure why, but they brought in a third guy named Aberg or Arberg, something like that. I think it's A-B-E-R-G. There might be a second R in there somewhere, forgive me. Anyway, he wrote it, campaigned it for, I guess it would have been the 76 season. And being probably the only 4-stroke, or one of barely a handful, he placed top 5 in the points championship for the whole season. Now keep in mind, because this was basically a prototype bike, there would have been some breakdowns, there would have been some missed races, I'm sure, probably crashes, because he would have had to have learned how to re-ride being on a 4-stroke when he was used to being competitive on a 2-stroke. So that's pretty damn good, straight out of the gates with no race history behind it at all. They finished 5. The overall standings for the season, that's pretty stellar. That's a pretty amazing feat. So at that point, Yamaha gets a hold of these guys again, says, holy crap, boys, you did it. You made quite the bike. It was a year, maybe 2 from that point that Yamaha decided they were, oh, what's this coming down the road? Right on, buddy, right on. Wicked. Distracted by all that, don't mind me. So, that was what, 76, I think it was 77 or 78 maybe, when the first factory HL500 comes out. Unfortunately, it made maybe 31 horsepower. It didn't make the 49 that was originally done on it. Just the longevity of the motor, the factory couldn't, because they're selling this thing, it's got to last. But there you go, that's the basic brief history. Like I say, it was born a race bike from two guys who raced. They built out of their own pocket, and then in the end Yamaha decided that, yeah, okay, they will back this thing, they will factory support it. What did they build? I think it was 200 of them, 300 of them, some such thing. Very limited run. You could still buy an actual HL version of it, which basically gave you, as far as I can understand of it, basically gave you a profab frame, I think a pipe, a cam, a few other goodies like that, hard parts, and then a list of all the stuff to source out to build it. So you didn't get much, but you're dealing with racing and privateers, so that's usually how that works anyways. So that's what that was all about. There you go. I guess that's as much as I can fill you in on the brief glory moments of the 4th 500, the HL. If I've missed anything integral, please leave a comment at the bottom of the video, fill me in. I'd love to know more about them, and I'm sure you guys, the viewers and the fans, all 200 of you, would like to know more about this as well. So there you go, that's that.